Hello, welcome to the second video. This video is about the music MML, also known as the music macro language. This video I will be explaining how to use MML, how to write an MML. The previous video was about crafting instruments, so if you haven't watched that, you should go and watch that. Not crafting instruments, crafting music paper, showing off different instruments. The third video, I will show you how to use third-party software to maybe make your life a little bit easier when composing music. Music macro language is a text-based music language, just like musical notation. Where to start? I guess I can just go down my guide if you're too lazy to read that. You can watch this video instead. So, if you don't know what music macro language is, there is a great Wikipedia page which also explains everything on, most everything on how MML works. It also gives you a brief history on it. If you want to read up on that, you can. There's also my guide. I also go into great detail on how all of it works, and right now I will be explaining how it all works. So, previous video I showed you how to craft music paper. Here it is. So you're gonna right click on it, maybe click on how to get your guide here. So we're gonna go ahead and make this our test composition. It doesn't fit, so we'll do comp. There is a limit apparently on the number of characters. You also have to name your sheet music, you can't just leave it blank. To understand music MML, you also need to understand musical notation. If you've never taken any musical classes at all and you know nothing about music, then this guide probably not going to help you, at least not right now. You can go on the web, you can search up musical notation. There are plenty of guides out there that can explain how to read music, how to write music much better than I can. I haven't been doing music a whole lot, but I did have musical classes for several years in elementary school, so I learned all my basics there, and I've retained the knowledge. Very helpful later on, at least for this anyway. So, in MML, I'll explain the defaults for Archeage real quick. So Archeage has different defaults. So the default octave is octave 5. The default note length is a quarter note here, L4. The default tempo is 100, the maximum is 255, and the minimum is 32. The default volume is 100, the maximum is 127, the default is 0. So if you were to type nothing in here and I put, I don't know, C, D, E, F, this will play at tempo 100, volume 100, and the octave will be 5. But I'll explain that in just a little bit. So there are different notes: C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. These are your basic notes. When you play them, it sounds like this. Let me get a better instrument. Let me turn off the music. There we go. So, yeah, that sounds much better. So that's what that sounds like. To change the sharp or flatness, you can add that. Well, I guess I'll just excuse me for being a little bit confused. I'm not good with speaking. So we'll do this, and then C minus. We play it, and that's what it sounds like. So C is the... I can highlight it, cool. So C here is the regular note. C with the pound symbol is, or hashtag, is the sharp, and then C with the minus is the flat. There's also another way of writing C sharp. You can do C plus. See? Exactly the same. So there are several ways to do octave changes in the game. As you've noticed, the default octave over here is 5, so if you were just to type something C, D, E, F, and play it, that would play in octave 5. Now if we wanted to change the octave, we could go, say, octave 6, we would do O6, and then C, D, E, F. And as you see, it's higher. If you want to go even higher, you can go O8, C, D, E, F. And there you go. There is another way for octave changing, and that would be with the less than or greater than symbol. So, to go up an octave, we would do this, and this would play O6. To go up another octave, we could do it again, C, D, E, F. If we want to go down an octave, we would do this. Oop, wrong one. C, D, E, F. And we can go back down again. C, D, E, F. And there you go. Those are the octave changes. Remember, you can do it with the O and then a number like 1, 4, 6, anywhere from 1 to 10. Or you can do it with the less than or greater than symbols. Our next thing would be note length. So what I've been showing you now were quarter notes, which are 4. So if we want a whole note, it would be C1. If we wanted a half note, it would be C2. I already showed you a quarter note, and if we want, say, a 64th note, it would be C64. And you can't hear it because it plays so fast. Maybe a 16th note? Yeah, there we go. C16, C16. There you go. That's how that works. Another way of doing the note length is to change the default note length, which is indicated with L. So if, well, right now it's in quarter note mode, which sounds like that, and if I want, I can change it to half notes by putting L2, and then when I play the music, it changes. Let's see what's next. Rest. So if you want to indicate a rest in the music, it would be with R for rest. And changing the note length for R uses the same method as changing note lengths for notes. So if you wanted a full rest, it would be R4. And of course, I have to put a note first. Oh, it's not a full rest. Full rest is R1. My bad. So it plays a quarter note, rests for one measure, and then plays another quarter note. Next thing, let's see. Yeah, I'll go into ampersands. So, in Music MML, there is a way to link notes together. So let's say you have 2 quarter notes, C, C. Sounds like that. Now if you put an and in between them, it plays a half note. And if I wanted a whole note, I could do and C, and C. That's 4 quarter notes, because 4 quarters makes a whole. And it sounds just like a whole note. Now one of the things you can do with this is that, as you may have noticed, if, well, I guess you haven't noticed because you're reading this guide and you haven't made any music. Well, when you make music, you'll notice that your music will play wrong almost all of the time. And to get around that, you can do the C and like this, and it'll just play one long continuous note. Now, if your music were to mess up, these note pitches would change, or they would play fast and then slow. And if that happens, you can cancel your music skill and then try again and hopefully get it correct. And if you play correct, you'll hear that it's a long hold note. Up next is the dotted note. Dotted notes will extend the length of the note. So if I were to do C1 period and then play it, and then we'll go ahead and play a slightly higher note without the period on the second channel, you will see that it ends a little bit shorter than the dotted note. Now if we're to add another D with, oh, I need to link it with ampersand. D, I believe it's 2. They end exactly the same. So how the dotted note works is that it extends the length of the note whatever is attached to by half of the current length. So if I were to put a dotted whole note, it would play for a whole note plus another half note. If I were to put it on a dotted half note, it would play for the half note plus another quarter note. So here's another example. So I'll do C2, separate track, then I'll do D2, and D4, and these should play exactly the same length. See? Up next is the tempo and volume, which I've sort of explained. So we'll go ahead and get our regular C, D, E, F, and when we play it, sounds like that. If I wanted to speed it up, maybe T150. This is 50% faster. Sounds like that. If I wanted to go even faster, I could do T200. Sounds like that. If I want it slower, I would go with a lower number, like T50. And even slower, I could do T32, which is the lowest. And these are quarter notes, by the way. So let's go back to the regular 100, which is the default anyway. Next is the volume. So volume is indicated with a V and then a number. So the default is 100, which sounds like this. If I wanted to make it louder, I would go 127, which is the maximum. If I wanted to go quieter, I could do 50. You can barely hear it. So that's tempo and volume explained. Up next is the N character. It's indicated with an N and then a number like, I don't know, 64 or N32 or N78. And when you play them, it doesn't do anything. However, in most MMLs that you get from Mabinogi, most of them are from Mabinogi now, a lot of them are shortened to as few characters as possible, and using the N characters is in the algorithm when you're trying to shorten the music. So you'll often see these N keys, or N characters, and sadly Archeage does not want to play these. So in a third-party program, or if you're talented enough, you'll have to change them to something else. I believe N64 is the same thing as Octave 3G. Okay. Someone's bombing something. Anyway, N numbers do not work, so ignore them, or don't ignore them. Change them to the proper notes. If you come across them, you will have to use a third-party program. it would be recommended to use a third-party program. It makes it much easier, because it's pretty much just guesswork. It's like you punch in the key, and then if it's the same, or if it's not the same, then you change it. Anyway, I'll explain that in the third video on using third-party programs, but right now I'm explaining MML. So up next is separate tracks. As you noticed, I used separate tracks to play two notes at the same time, and that is separated with a comma, like this. So if I were to do a two-track song, so C, D, E, F, and I wanted to play two notes at the same time, I'd have to put a comma, and then I can do, I don't know, let's change the octave to octave 6, and then I'll do C, D, E, F again. Sounds like that. If I want to play 3 notes at a time, I'd have to put another comma. And we'll play this on octave 4, C, D, E, F. See? Now, if I don't like the first 2 notes in the second track, I can replace them with rests, like this. And it'll sound like that. And over here, I can put another rest. And here, maybe I'll put a rest here as well. And right now, both tracks are completely in sync. Now, let's return everything to normal. And I'll explain what happens if it goes out of sync. So, let's say you want to input a rest on the second channel, and you want to replace it with D, but you make a mistake and you put an extra one. So what do you think is going to happen? It extends the song that's playing on this track by an extra note, which is the rest. And when that happens, everything gets out of sync. And you probably won't be doing multiple tracks unless you're pretty talented on sheet music while typing on the keyboard like this. And that's where the third-party programs come in handy, because it helps keep everything in sync, and if you were to add something here, it'll probably affect it on the other track, and it won't be as confusing and frustrating. I think I have an example song. Alright, I'm back in. I have a example song copied to the clipboard, and all I have to do is hit Control V to paste it in. So have you noticed at the very beginning you have this MML at? Go ahead and delete that. It's just a waste of space, because you do have a limited number of characters. So this right now is a one-track song. There's only one channel, one instrument playing, one note playing at a time. And it's also too long right now, so I'm going to delete notes off of the end to get it to the proper length. There we go, 400 out of 400. And when I play the music, whoops, I forgot to change the volume. And this song sounds familiar, doesn't it? So that was a good 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds, using about 396 characters. The maximum right now for Artistry is 1,000 characters, and that includes the entire sheet music. So if you have multiple tracks, 2 tracks, each track could probably use 500 characters each. And if you have 3, then that's even less characters for that specific track. Not the best the best setup, to be honest. They should really increase their maximum characters to probably at least 1,500, maybe 2,000. If you want a really good song to last more than a minute or a minute and a half, 1,000 characters is not going to do it. I guess I could have done it in the first video, but I'll go ahead and do it here. There are different ranks for artistry. I'm trying to show you the limitations of artistry. Okay, so here we are. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ranks for artistry. You will probably only have to go up to master if you want to just make music sheets. But if you also want to craft different musical instruments like pianos and sonographs and all this, it says here you need 60,000, which means that you need to get up to authority at least. So that's beyond master rank. There's also these here. But I think the Liberty drums is the only thing that requires that high. So unless you're making drums, then you don't need to go above master. You can use those specialization points for other skills like, I don't know, cooking. But anyway, those numbers that you see next to them are the number of characters. So right now I'm a novice. I can have a maximum of 400 characters per sheet. At veteran you get 600, expert 800, and master 1000. Authority and champion, I suspect they'll be increasing them, so authority might be 1200 and champion might be 400 in the future. I don't know yet. I don't really listen to the news from Korea. Maybe someone else will know that. That about explains it for this video. If you've stuck with me this long, thank you. I'm not very good at speaking, as you've noticed. If you feel that I've missed anything, let me know. I'll fix it, either a notation or a completely new video. If you're watching this on the forums, links for resources will be in the thread on the guide. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link in the description to the forum thread where you can find the links and also the complete guide in case that the video is even more confusing than what I've already typed out. Thank you for watching. Hope you come again.